Good evening. It is Friday, January 5th, 2018. My name is Jacob.
And I'm Danielle.
And we are the Proteus Podcast. Ideas in all shapes and forms.
And even though, it's January 5th, we're putting this up next week on like the 9th.
Really?
Right?
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Well, we already put one up this week.
Did we?
Yeah. Just 2 days ago.
So, time's long past. 2 days.
So we're just letting you, the listener, know. We're pre-recording this for your pleasure.
For your auditory, dulcet tones of the Proteus Podcast.
So, also, this will be our second of the promised Star Wars The Last Jedi review.
Yep.
Senior Jake and I have both watched it a second time.
A second time. Once again, for the second time.
I even went to a better theater, sat in a better seat to give it like the full
Monty.
Yeah, like I'm trying to give it every chance I could get.
Okay.
And yeah. Well, you said you had pages of notes.
I have pages of notes.
And I don't want to take this over. I feel like I took over the first half of this.
I don't remember. That was weeks ago.
But so how about we start with your notes and I'll comment. And if I think that I have something to add to that.
Okay. So I really went into this. I kind of begrudgingly went and saw this a second time, right? For some reason, walking to the theater, I was not looking forward to sitting through. I was like, I have to watch this whole friggin' movie again. Right? It was pretty much my attitude. And surprisingly, I enjoyed it more on the second viewing than the first. And I was trying to be nitpicky when I went into it. I was like looking for things, trying to, see if stuff I'd missed and whatnot. Right? So I found myself enjoying it more. And I think that's largely because I didn't have to sit through like 45 minutes of trailers before the movie.
Yeah.
The theater I saw it at the first time had an excess of trailers, right? It was one of the nice, like the theaters, the AMC ones or whatever, with the reclining leather couch seats and drinks and giant cup. Like all that was fine. It was a nice theater, but their pre-roll was so inordinately long. It was a 3-hour experience to go see this movie.
Which
longer. It was closer to 4.
Yeah.
Right. And I did not watch the credits, and the movie I think was slated to start at 10. And we left the theater at 1.
Ugh.
After 1. It was ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
It's just way too much. And so I think that kind of colored my opinion of the first time. And so there were some things that I picked up on that I didn't catch in the first viewing because I was paying more attention. And but overall, I really did enjoy it more the second time. Some of the things I didn't like the first time didn't bother me as much. A few things that I didn't like the first time bothered me more. So there's that. But
okay.
So I've got a whole list of the good versus the bad, and then some extras that I, because after I got back, I was excited about it, and so I looked, finally listened to some podcasts of other people's opinions and some stuff that just other information about the movie that I'd been avoiding.
Well, let's start with a good.
The good. Well, I wanted to start with one thing that I had been avoiding from when the second trailer for Star Wars had come out, they said there was a giant spoiler in it.
Yeah.
And so I finally looked to see what they said that spoiler was, and it's merely the scene when Rey uses Kylo's lightsaber in the fight scene on the capital ship.
That's what I called out.
Yeah, and they thought that was giving away something, which it really turns out didn't, right? It's always fun to go back and see what people's opinions were of, is that truly a spoiler or not? And so it kind of doesn't really give much away.
I think it was a spoiler because, like, the moment I saw that, I was like, oh, Kylo and Rey are going to fight in front of Snoke. Like, they're going to fight as a team against Snoke, and I was right.
Like, I didn't even really pick up on that, because I did watch that trailer.
Yeah, I know you did.
So anyways, for the good, I want to reiterate how absolutely beautiful the ramming speed using light hyperdrive scene
Yeah, that
was.
Holdo did.
That Vice Admiral Holdo, that is just insanely beautiful. The cut to silence, no sound,
Yeah,
and just
that
pure visuals. Even on the smaller screen that I saw it on this time, man, that's a piece of filmmaking right there.
right. Some theaters have actually had to put up a notice before the movie starts that there's going to be silence for around 20 seconds of time
Because people think that the
during.
sound broke.
Yeah, and they had people like coming up to the front of the offices and the front of the theater saying, "Hey, the sound's not working."
Hmm.
But no, I agree with you right there. That is Ryan Johnson,
Good.
and I have a lot of
Problem.
respect for Ryan Johnson's filmmaking.
Yeah, like I've
As
gone.
I've Go ahead.
Some of the complaints I had about his work in this, I don't know if I retract them, but I understand better what he was trying to accomplish, and
Yeah,
I don't feel so much that he was trying to rewrite Star Wars as
he was
as strongly as
trying
I
to.
did.
He was definitely trying to change. He was trying to flip a lot of the Star Wars mechanics. He was
Yeah,
trying to change it.
I think what he was trying to do, and this is my take on it now, is the primary complaints against The Force Awakens
Uh-huh.
is that it's basically Star Wars: A New Hope reskinned.
Right.
This is the way a lot of people take that, right? It hits all those marks and touches all the Star Wars touchstones that we expect and want.
True, but I think
And so that was the complaints, and I think he just stretched a little too far avoiding those.
Mhm.
That while still trying his best to hold true to Star Wars. So it falls in a funny place there because of that, because he went too far. There's a middle ground that we're looking for. Apparently, we're looking for that touches enough touchstones to be relevant, but still is fresh and new.
Right.
So I think if they can thread this third movie between those two extremes, it will be the finest piece of Star Wars ever made.
Yeah, I think Abrams is going to bring it back a little bit. And I think as far as The Force Awakens go, I think if they didn't have them destroying a big orb-like planet killer, it wouldn't have gotten as much criticism that they just remade A New Hope.
Yeah, I think that probably would have made the difference.
Now, getting back to the cinematography, because yeah, the Holdo scene, like being brave enough to put that much just straight up silence.
It's really
into
rare,
film.
and I really appreciate that in filmmaking, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
the only other
love
movie
that.
that's recently done that, and it was the only good part of the movie, I thought, was X-Men Apocalypse.
Oh yeah,
At the scene where Magneto's family dies, it cuts to silence for a pretty good stretch there, and you're just like, oh, because it intensifies the emotion and the visuals to such a great degree.
You know
Because
what?
it stresses you a little bit. You're like, oh, it puts that intensity, it's a, because you expect there to be noise. So you're like, ooh, 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 why is there no noise? It really draws you into the scene.
It's also similar to what Quentin Tarantino did in Kill Bill when when the bride is fighting the crazy 88s and they go to just black and white.
Yeah, it's,
It
removing a sense to intensify the experience.
Yeah, and it worked amazing there. You're right, it worked great in Apocalypse, in X-Men Apocalypse, and it worked exceedingly well here.
Yeah, and something that I like that it isn't used very often because it makes it more impactful. It's like, I think its cousin could be, you see it in TV shows and action movies a lot, where somebody gets flashbanged or something, and the sound gets all muted and has the tinnitus tone running in the background,
Uh-huh.
right? It's cousins with that. It's this focusing down, and that gets overused a lot. But dropping to pure silence doesn't, and I hope it stays that way. That a few filmmakers use it here and there for making really impactful moments, and I hope it doesn't become a trope that gets overused.
Right. And Now I'm gonna go to what I think is, and after watching it a second time, I'm less forgiving for this scene, but not because of the mechanics behind it, but because of the cinematography for it.
Which scene?
Leia coming back into the ship.
Right.
The cinematography for that is atrociously bad.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like I'm fine with her using the Force to sustain herself in space and coming back to the ship and, being essentially fine after that. That I'm fine. I've read enough of the Legends books of the extended universe to know that that's fully capable within the Force, and Leia herself is a really strong Force user.
Yeah, that's
That
all. None of that bothers me. The way that shot is filmed is just plain strange.
It's strange.
It's a little video
it
gamey.
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't look good. It's not even like on the edge of the valley of uncanny. Blah 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 blah. It's just not done well.
Yeah, I think it would have been better with a more fixed focus, like having the camera with someone looking out, like a window or something, and having all that happen instead of being right there. I don't know. It could have been different. Who's to say if it would have been better is the thing.
Yeah, I think that was a...
They said, here's what we got to do, and that was the best they could come up with that month. And so we got to get into these, though, because this is going to get horrendously long otherwise.
Well, then we may have to split this into two.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I caught that I did not catch in the first viewing at all, right?
Uh-huh.
Was the force projection that Luke used.
Uh-huh.
Telegraphs instantly if you're paying attention to the movie.
Oh, yeah. Totally. He's younger.
He doesn't leave any footprints in the snow.
Well, yeah, in the salt.
And his lightsaber
is
the one that's been torn in half.
It's the Anakin Sky.
It's the Anakin lightsaber. You're like, I didn't catch any of that
Skywalker
in the first viewing. The Skywalker lightsaber.
Yeah. I noticed it.
Paying attention. Just because I was paying more attention on the second viewing, looking for things that I finally caught that. I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool.
And so here's my thought on that. And let's see if you agree. I think that was Luke. So this, I'm going to give a little bit of background. Here's me being nerdy. In the Legends books, or the extended universe, the old extended universe, what Luke did was called a Force Phantom, which is primarily a Sith technique which uses the life force of another individual to allow them to project themselves anywhere they want.
Yeah.
Okay. And basically, and this explains why it killed Luke, actually, because Luke used his own life energy to project himself. And I think that on top of that, because the way they set up the film, Luke had been disconnected from the Force for so long, but he was still incredibly strong. He had to be able to project himself. He had to project the way that he viewed Luke the hero.
Yeah, that's sort of how I felt about it. It's a little bit like in The Matrix. The way you look in The Matrix is all because of a residual self-image.
Right.
And that's how he, and also he's also projecting expectation too. This is what Kylo remembers him looking, even though it's years earlier.
And I think that's also why he didn't use his green lightsaber in his projection, because I think for him he was using the green lightsaber during his moment of weakness where he thought about killing Kylo. Yeah. And so for him, he can't use the green lightsaber as an image of Luke the hero, because for him it's tied to a moment of cowardice and weakness. So he used the Skywalker lightsaber.
So another thing that I really liked was the a lot of people complain that there's no good fight scenes. And somehow they're forgetting the entire fight against the Red Guard in
It wasn't a lightsaber on lightsaber battle, which is what people are complaining about.
Yeah, but at the same time, those weapons are lightsaber-esque, and that fight was awesome.
No, that fight was awesome. It just wasn't a lightsaber on lightsaber battle, which is what people are ranting themselves about.
That's God. You making up things to whine about at that point? I think because that was
I
an
mean,
incredible fight, and that final kill where he just turns the saber on and off real quick.
uh-huh.
That was brutal and amazing. It was crazy. It was like, oh, haha, that is pretty much how you felt when you saw that. I think.
Now, I will say that I felt like the fight of Kylo versus Force Projection Luke was by far the best lightsaber battle I've seen in a Star Wars film.
Yeah, that because that had a lot of the feel of the slower paced lightsaber battles from the original trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
doesn't have the insane glitzy flipping craziness from episodes 1 through 3.
Yeah.
But it had so much intensity to it too. At the same time, the stakes seemed super high and crazy, So I
Right.
like that. Another thing I
Let
listed.
me add real quick to that.
Right.
One of the things, there was a Mark Hamill quote, or I was watching a Mark Hamill interview where he said in order to do this role, he had to view Luke as a different Luke than the one that he had played before
Mm-hmm.
because he completely disagreed with the way it was written.
Hmm.
And so he said, when I started identifying this character, like in my mind as Jake Skywalker, this all made sense.
Yeah.
And so the second time I watched the movie, I was viewing it as this is Jake Skywalker.
Weird.
So, well, I had to detach from the way I view Luke Skywalker to get any enjoyment, or else I was just going to be irritated every time I saw Luke.
Yeah.
And so, and in a lot of ways, that's what I really liked about that last lightsaber battle, because it was like the culmination of everything that Luke had learned from his previous masters
Yeah.
and how he handled that fight. And to me, that was more satisfying the second time around with that lens.
Yeah. One of the other things I like there at the torture and killing of Snoke was how Kylo was doing all the actual movements that Snoke was predicting. He turns his saber, towards such and such, and he turns it on, and like he's physically doing that with his normal saber while doing everything with the Force to do the other one to mask what he's doing. Like that's a detail that I liked. That
I did like that. I don't think Snoke is dead.
it's hard to say. Right?
Well,
A lot of people are kind of hoping he is. Like I heard this pointed out that they said it doesn't matter who Snoke is. That it's all setting up to prove that Kylo really is as bad as we need him to be a really terrifying villain.
well, and I agree with that sentiment, and I think Kylo has to believe he killed Snoke, but I don't think he actually killed him. I think that's okay. So let's go back to the original trilogy. Okay, Palpatine or the Emperor was like, in order to truly become a master Sith, a master of the dark side, or fully embrace the dark side, it wasn't necessarily you have to kill your father. It was like, come and strike me down. Come and strike the master down. You actually have to, and when you get more in depth to it, it's not, you can't kill someone you love to fully embrace the dark side of the Force. You have to destroy something you truly hate. And I think all of that was, I think Snoke knew that Kylo was going to turn on him. I think it was planned. I think it was meticulous because he wanted Kylo to take that final step into embracing hate. And that's what it was.
Could be. It's yet to be seen, obviously.
And also, I just... I disagree with that whole how they turned that death into a comedic joke time and time again. Just
Anyways, I caught that I didn't really pay attention to because Snoke says that he linked Kylo and Rey, but they link up after he's dead. Right there as everyone's escaping from Crete.
Yeah, I don't think he was dead. It's more evidence towards my belief.
Yeah, it could go either way though. Either he's not as powerful as he thought he was, and they were able to link on their own, or yeah, he might still be alive. It's hard to
I
say.
mean, Kylo said that that type of effort would have killed Rey.
He
And
doesn't know.
Kylo, well, you have to come from
We
a
have to
place of
no,
assuming he does.
maybe because
And
he's still wildly untrained. We don't know that. So
and Rey is stronger in the Force at this point than Kylo is. I
maybe
mean,
it's hard to say.
Kylo is still a petulant child.
He's a petulant child. They're both very powerful, but they're both untrained. So no, being able to gauge whether or not using that much force would kill someone, it's hard to say.
Well, but Kylo is trained. Kylo is super well trained in the Force. He just can't control his emotions because he's a whiny kid. Kylo has been trained in the Force.
That's part of being trained. That's
But
to me, in my mind, to me. So
okay, it's the dark path. It's like that imbalance. I see it further. Oh, also the part where Snoke is talking about when Hux and Kylo are both in his office, and Snoke does his little "You may wonder why I keep a cur so close," blah 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 blah. Honestly, I don't think he's talking about Hux there. I think he's talking about Kylo.
could be.
Because Hux is comic relief. Hux has been comic relief in each film. There's no
Yeah. So, anyways, another thing that I really liked just for cinematography was the opening shot after the crawl.
Uh-huh.
I really liked that, the way it dove down towards the frigate and then down through the evacuating ships and stuff. I would have liked it. Almost would have liked to see just go a little bit farther down to the base, but the cut was okay. But it's just it's similar to all of the traditional pan to the actual thing that has happened at the start of all the Star Wars movies, but it was also interesting and different because it moved the camera so much, which is not super common anymore.
Yeah, no, I appreciated that.
Camera moves are kind of rare anymore anyways, so that's neat.
Tell me how you... Oh, go ahead.
There's more to that. When the frigate, not the frigate, the giant ship destroys the base, the giant cannon. I forgot its name. But there's a shot where I think it's when they're recharging the cannon and repositioning it to aim at the fleet. That you see the fleet in the distance, the cannon moving in the foreground, and in the background down below on the planet, you see this giant mushroom cloud coming up from the base.
It's a pretty good shot.
And just graphically, it captures so much, and there's an attention to detail there. Just having that stuff on the mushroom cloud on the base coming up and moving and being neat while all this is happening in the foreground is cool, because that's something that could have easily been left out, but it adds something to all that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. That shot is gorgeous. I liked it. I didn't. That opening scene where Poe Dameron is prank calling Hux.
Yeah, it's silly.
I laughed the first time I saw it. The second time, I found it annoying.
I think I laughed the second time too. I could see it could get annoying on rewatches, but
well, I think the problem and this kind of goes into my other thought around Hux being comic relief and a useless character, is really you're being trolled, dude. Like, you're about to destroy the rebels and there's one X-Wing. What do you think he's doing? Of course he's buying time.
Well, something I've taken away from a lot of this, though, is that the First Order are, like, probably the rear deployment of the Empire. These people are genuinely bad at their jobs.
Yeah,
right. Like more so than normal the rest of the Empire ever was. Right.
Right, which makes you wonder.
But they make these incredibly tactically bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's only through and so in terms of actual combat, they're very bad. And I think, but they're the rear deployment. They're the guys that are developing weapons and stuff. So they've got all this neat stuff. They've got these insanely big destroyers and whatnot, and a Star Killer base. But because they're these are the guys that, okay, you're not gonna be leading any troops because you suck. You stay in the back, and they're the ones that survived the main war against the the rise of the New Republic.
But that's the thing also, is that they're also the ones that crushed the New Republic.
Yeah, but that's just, it's kind of an accidental success. We happen to have this Star Killer base, we might as well fire it, kind of a thing. But, because there's a bunch of other things that I picked up that were... Let me finish the last of the good stuff that I liked, though.
Okay.
I didn't catch them on the first viewing. In the second viewing, they're on Crete with the Siege.
Yeah.
With the new Guerrilla Walker AT-M6s.
Yeah.
There's also regular size AT-ATs there with them that are much smaller. I didn't catch that. I thought that the Guerrilla Walkers were just, they're redesigned AT-ATs. It's no, those are much, much bigger.
Yeah,
they have way bigger cannons on top and stuff. And then there's also AT-ATs down there. So I like that they still exist. That wasn't just, okay, these are the new version and all the old ones are gone. I'm glad I didn't catch that before, and I like that. And I had to look this up, actually, or I ran into it in some extra information I was looking at after I saw it. But the dice that Luke takes from the Falcon and gives to Leia.
Yeah, those are the dice that...
those are some famous dice.
Yeah, those are the dice that Solo used to win the Falcon.
It depending on which extended universe you're using, because he won it in a card game in the other extended universe.
Right.
But yeah, supposedly he won the Falcon with him, and they're referenced in a whole bunch. There's in the trading card game and a bunch of other lore. So I thought that was cool. And you actually do see them in episode 4. They're in the cockpit.
Yeah, they
so
are.
So it's not something they just pulled out of nowhere and created. That's actually a really nice nod to the extended universe fans, I think, using that. So that's cool.
I also, and I'm going to go back to tying into the whole Snoke being a force projection and that he's not actually dead. Those dice hung around for a good amount of time after Luke died.
Good point. Okay, so let's get to the bad.
Okay, I'm ready.
Bloody, sodding bombing run. The whole thing is so stupid. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I get that a bunch of Star Wars' fight scenes and space battles are literally like almost shot-for-shot remakes of World War II or like World War One, dogfighting.
Yeah.
But this takes it to an extreme because the bombers are clearly like, the B-50, the flying fortresses, and then you've got the fighters defending, and they're all, exploding and blowing up into each other and stuff. It just makes no sense as a space battle. They're so sodding slow.
Yeah.
And their magnetic dropping, charged mine thing. Like, it
doesn't make sense.
And like, if you're loaded with bombs that can fly off sideways and hit your... Why would you have a formation like that? Like, nothing about that makes sense.
Well, and then you add on to that, right? Like, if they are exploding off of the explosions of the others and not contact, how did that destroy that ship? It doesn't make any sense. After the first one hit, the rest should have chain reactioned, exploded in the air, and done minimal damage to that.
Yeah, like
to that ship.
Whole thing's just ringy, and also, it's just sticking too much to that World War II movie format that they have done so much of the fight scene, the space combat style after. It's all styled after bombing runs and fighter pilots and stuff, and in airplanes, which I don't know. It makes this whole plot move forward in the way it has to there, but in terms of science fiction space battles, that's one of the worst I've ever seen.
Well, I also feel like that, like that. I feel like he was trying to take a little bit of that Rogue One cinematography into play there, of like these soldiers doing like a last-ditch hopeless effort to do blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But what really, and this is a continual negative for me throughout the entire film, what really irritated me is that the resistance, they weren't rebels yet. The resistance was ready to flee, and they went ahead with this.
Yeah. And that was
like
Poe
honestly,
disobeying orders, and they're not going to leave him, all those people behind, kind of a thing.
But they didn't, like, everyone go back. Everyone go back.
Yeah.
It's like follow your Goram orders.
Yeah.
But
yeah, follow my orders. And then, so the other, speaking of space battle tactics, the whole chase scene with them, the Star Destroyers following the transport ship, the frigate, and shooting at it. Like, wait, the Star Destroyers aren't out of hyperdrive fuel. Why don't they just jump a little over and ahead and put them in a crossfire and this thing's over? Like, tactically, that's ridiculous, and further proof that the First Order has no idea what they're doing in terms of combat.
Well, and also their excuse for not catching up is they're lighter and faster.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. You've got hyperdrive. You just jump ahead of them.
Have hyperdrive. Not only that, this is a continuity problem for me, but if they're lighter and faster, why aren't they gaining ground?
Yeah. Yeah, like the whole thing's
they're not gaining
goofy
ground.
there.
And also,
because that right there is just a sea chase at that point,
Well, and the other thing is that if they aren't monitoring for the small ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like these ships are like these hyperspace shuttles are just jumping in and out throughout the film.
Why didn't anybody just go get help?
They had 18 hours. They could have evacuated the entire ship.
Yeah.
All of them.
With little hyperdrive puddle jumps.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's a lot of the tactics there that are, like, if you look at it from the tactical and, suspend your suspension of disbelief, it gets real silly real fast. So I try not to get too hung up on it. It's like, I just take it as, okay, the First Order's super bad at their jobs because they are they were the last line of defense. And I feel like the Resistance is like they kind of allude to all this in the first movie, that the Resistance exists because Leia knows that the First Order is still around and needs to be dealt with, but the Republic feels like, okay, Empire's been struck down, we're good, we don't really need to be worrying about this stuff now. The Resistance will get itself mopped up at some point, right? And so she's operating on a shoestring budget with not all the best people anymore, kind of a thing. That's the take I got out. So really, you've got sort of these two half-assed groups pawing at each other and occasionally succeeding.
Right. So what was your next thing?
Okay, the next thing, not necessarily any of these are in particular order. The parking violation getting you thrown in jail and your ship blown up on the fancy lottery planet seems a bit much.
Oh, man. That whole Corbinite, whatever. Cantobite. That whole side plot was just stupid.
It sort of served a purpose at some point, but
what was the purpose? There was no plot development.
To let you meet Benicio del Toro's character. I don't want to get into that, but just like
DJ, don't join.
The whole thing could have been executed better, I think. And also BB-8's full of money. They could have paid a fine and dealt with that. Instead, they go to prison and meet this Slicer.
The Slicer,
who's a dick.
And the bigger problem with this is that that whole subplot could have been easily avoided if they just had a small amount of intelligence. Okay. And two, the reason why the Resistance got wiped down to basically the number of people that can fit on the Millennium Falcon is because of that side plot.
Mm-hmm.
Ben and Rose killed everyone.
True.
And they should suffer consequences for that.
Probably.
I mean, it's this whole deal,
which of course loops me. We've been over that in the previous go around. Loops me into the back end thing of freaking the Holdo saying follow my orders without giving anyone any orders,
Yeah.
would have avoided
And
all of that if she said, okay, here's to Poe, who's clearly wants to help and be involved, and says follow my orders, but doesn't tell him anything. It makes him,
right.
what do you expect from an impulsive guy when you tell him to follow your orders, you don't give him any orders, and he's impulsively wanting to do things and help, he's going to do something stupid. So,
Well, and
which
evidently
also brings up, when they first introduced Holdo, Poe's like, that's Holdo? Because he, and by reputation, he respected her from this other battle and all this stuff. He didn't know her, but he's like, he famous. This okay, we're gonna be good. We got Holdo, and then Holdo doesn't live up to the reputation he's expecting, and so okay, fine. Apparently, you're not what I thought you were. Let's take care of this.
And another problem I have with that on rewatch is I was like, okay, so Holdo has brought in the bridge crew, right, into what the plan is, except for the
except for the people that can actually thwart her plan.
right. It's like the Carrie Fisher's daughter. She has that role.
Yeah.
And she's like always on the bridge crew. She's a confidant of Leia, and one would assume Holdo, but she's in on Poe Dameron's plan, like even covering for them when they make the jump. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like that whole side subplot, they could have done something better there, or they could have just removed it and saved us 40 minutes.
Or just done something that makes sense. So anyways, that brings me to my last thing. That this is, I'm curious if this is an artifact of Disney being involved now. And I'm not entirely sure. Is that apparently all animals in the Star Wars universe are sentient. Right? Look at this. The porgs, the catbirds, like display emotion and all these other things, and are trying to basically appear to be trying to guilt, Chewie into not eating them, and like the way they behave is like a intelligent animal from a Disney movie, right?
Yeah. Like
they look at you and then they have compassion in their eyes, and then they're sad, and all these kinds of things, right? And then the same thing with the Fathier racing dogs on Cantabite. Like they've got a very human face, and like they clearly are sad that they're being forced into slavery to run races, right?
Yeah.
Like all the expressions they use on them are not like normal animals that are kind of just look at you like animals do, And then the same thing with the crystal critters, the Volptices on
they're really intelligent.
Like they're super intelligent. Like they clearly see that people are in trouble and lead them to safety, right? Like that one that's the last one. He keeps stopping and looking back. Oh yeah, they're still following. Oh yeah, they're still following. It's a Disney animal thing, and even to a certain extent, the Thalasirens that Luke milks for his green milk, like kind of like, oh yeah, looks over at Rey. Oh yeah, this weirdo milks me. Like, give him a look,
I'm
right?
not sure if that was a Disney thing as much as it was a Rian Johnson thing.
But it weirds me out that
Disney...
every animal you encounter seems to be in just, like, maybe they don't talk, but they have a pretty high level of intelligence compared to a border collie.
I think they did that. I think Rian Johnson did that, or for most of them, for comedic relief.
Yeah.
Like...
it's just one of those things that's starting to trip me out with Star Wars. Like, why are all of the animals smarter than an incredibly intelligent dog? Like, why aren't there any just dumb flocking animals and things?
I'm gonna send you a link of a meme, and you're gonna hate me for it.
No, don't do that.
Wait, no, it's gonna be great.
No.
It speaks exactly to what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, do it.
This is
Click
not...
on it.
Apparently, I have to log in.
What?
Okay, I don't know what you sent me, but it's not that.
Let me. Anyway, there was in the extended universe, there were force sensitive
animals.
Lizards.
I remember
that acted a lot like porgs.
So anyways,
there, I just sent it to you to your group mail, Gmail hangout.
All right. So, anyways, that's pretty much the. Oh. Yeah. Thank you for that. It's going to haunt me for years. So, anyways, that brings me to the last few things that were just extras that I picked up in a few places that someone had gotten. Like, there's the book out already, the concept art that goes with this movie.
Yep.
Which extends some interesting things. There's pages that are out of the Jedi books, which is kind of awesome. Individual pages that belong within them.
Yeah.
And apparently in the Mirror Cave thing, there was at least storyboarded out or maybe thought out a whole nother scene with Luke in that cave with Vader and Kenobi fighting each other.
Yeah.
So it kind of definitely lends it to that being one of those weird dark force sensitive places like on Endor, not on
I know
Dagobah.
exactly what you're talking about because I've looked through that from what's been posted online, and what the general consensus is that cave is supposed to show you your fear.
Yeah.
And that leads into like
Rey seeing only herself alone.
Right, as being a fear and not necessarily a real truth.
Yeah.
That she does have parents out there.
So yeah, that's good. And then I found out
back into my theory
why porgs are even in the bloody movie.
Okay.
Puffins.
Yeah.
Skellig Michael Island, where they filmed that thing, is infested with puffins. And rather than going and rotoing every one of them out, they just painted over them with the pork because it's easier. And then this is something interesting to point out, though. Porgs are carnivorous. Look at the teeth.
Oh, yeah.
They have teeth like dogs and cats. They eat meat. So someone theorized maybe the reason that they're so friendly with Chewie later in the thing is because he shared with them at the campfire. And
I think that is what happened.
So that sounds right to me.
I had... So what's your thoughts after rewatching and giving it more thinking?
I'm pretty much in the position where the 2 or 3 things that really bugged me still bug me, and I'm never going to get over that, I suppose. Like the bombing run scene and just Holdo being the worst commander. It's baffling because it's alluded to that she's a good commander that is respected and did something awesome and she clearly was a good leader at the time. And then none of that appears to hold true. Like she just, doesn't command. She just does a thing and doesn't tell anyone what's going on or how to deal with this situation, which is not how you command. And so that whole thing just bugs the shit out of me.
Yeah. It also doesn't keep with how they've done, how the Resistance or the Rebels have handled this type of communication in the past.
Yeah.
It's not like this is an organization that keeps things close to the chest. Like when they decided to go after the Death Star, they told a room full of 150 people.
Yeah. It's just this is what we're going to do. We're going to blow that thing up.
It's this is what we're going to do. We're going to buy time.
The mechanics are there for that meeting.
Stealthily escape, right?
Yeah.
You would think that everyone would want to get behind that.
Yeah. And anyways. So little things like that I think will bug me, but I mean, it's overall I found the movie enjoyable and still good. None of that is so off-putting that it ruins the movie for me.
Yeah, I
and the good parts of this movie really shine. The fight scene in Snoke's throne room, the fight scene between Luke and Kylo, even though it's barely a fight, and just things like that really, really work for me and make this a movie that I will definitely add to my collection.
I think for myself, I still, and I said this the first time, I've heaped a lot of dislike on it, but overall, I think it's a good film. I think it's a really great film. It makes me really excited for Rian Johnson's standalone trilogy.
Yeah, you've definitely said that. We've got a lot of fun places we can go with the standalone.
Right, but on the same note, I think that he tried to change too much of the dynamics for what makes a Star Wars film. And that's why it's a 50-50 split of the people that have seen it that either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
It's too divisive for main canon Star Wars, in my in my opinion.
But I think this definitely sets the target for the episode 9. Thread the needle between where Force Awakens was and where this is, and you'll make the perfect Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I think as much as I dislike J.J. Abrams for a lot of his work, like I hate his new Star Trek movies, he did a really good job with The Force Awakens. And I think he's going to knock it out of the frigging park for the last Star Wars movie.
Yeah, because I think he sees all these things that are, the responses and how things were handled, and definitely can adapt to that,
Yeah.
I'd like him to make one more Star Wars movie just to see if he can correct, do a little course correction, and respond to all the criticisms that it has wrought.
Yep.
I don't know if it'll happen.
So with that being said, good job. We made it through.
We did it. We talked about this movie.
We talked about it. We talked it to the living Tweedles.
We really did.
So, how jaded are you?
Right now?
Yeah?
I don't know, like a 4.
Like 4? I'm still at like a 3. I get to go to Disney World next week.
Wait. Do you have a quote?
I do have a quote.
Okay.
I have a great quote.
Okay.
I have a quote from Mark Hamill.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. How did the most optimistic, hopeful character in the galaxy turn into this hermit that says it's time for the Jedi to end? I was like, what? That's not what a Jedi does.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with one from Snoke from the movie.
Uh-huh.
So darkness rises and light to meet it.
Yep.
So, there we are. So, if for some reason you liked what you heard here today, remember to follow us on Twitter to be updated when new podcasts are posted.
You can also subscribe on Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, anywhere fine podcasts are pervade.
And if you would like to send your comments in, email us at protespodcast@gmail.com.
Ooh. I'll check it right now. I'll see if there's been an email. I'm going to look.
You do that.
I'm loading it up.
All that being said, I've been Jacob.
Aw, no emails. And I'm still Dannielle.
And we have been the Proteus Podcast. Good night, everyone.